It is the story of two men, two inventors, who have been giving life to a dream for 10 years. A dream as light as a cloud, but aimed at weighing heavily on the choices of our world. That dream isn't a mere plane, and yet its purpose is to fly. It keeps flying tirelessly. Its source of energy is boundless. Its only fuel is the light of the sun. It pollutes no more than a bird. It came into existence to show that new technologies could change the world. Consequently, it must fly willy-nilly. It is not just a plane. It is a messenger. The adventure starts here, in California, a land of pioneers. The aim is to fly across the United States from the Pacific to the Atlantic, propelled only by the light of the sun. They are due to leave in 1 month. But for Bertrand Piccard and André Borschberg, the showdown has already started.
We don't agree with you. That's a problem. It's a huge problem, Bertrand. You must be able to fly the green one. You must be able to do this.
No, I will be able to do the green one also, but I think it's much safer to have a vertical overfly of the field, have a visual inspection of everything. With a green one, I land blind. I've never seen the runway.
I tell you, Bertrand, this will not be accepted on all airports.
Raymond, did you ask between midnight and 1 o'clock how much traffic they have still? How many departures and how many landings?
It's not a question of traffic.
It is a question of traffic
It's
because
not a question of traffic,
yes,
it's a question
it
of
is.
density populated.
No, Raymond, I totally disagree.
Okay, I've been half an hour on the phone with Phoenix now with the chief of the approach, and they accept the green circuits as there is no traffic anymore on runway 25 or 07.
In a country where air traffic is the heaviest in the world, negotiating flight windows isn't an easy task. Solar Impulse isn't meant to stay in the hangar. The 30 members of the team can start the training sessions.
To make this airplane fly, we need quite a large team. Of course, we need a pilot, but we need people on the ground to take the airplane out of the hangar, position it on the runway, guide it for the takeoff, and of course, to fetch it when it lands.
It's a NASA airport, so it's mythical. It's the symbol of the conquest of space, of exploration, of pioneering. And on a personal level, it also reminds me of my childhood in Florida when I was invited by officials of NASA to witness 6 Apollo launches, 4 to space and 2 to the moon. So for me, I'm back in the dream. I'm just happy.
Dreamtime. It is a family story. Auguste Piccard, Bertrand's grandfather, invented the pressurized cabin which enabled him to reach the stratosphere in 1931, thus becoming the first man capable of watching the curvature of the Earth. His son Jack also embarked on a journey which remained a dream for years. In the abyss of the Mariana Trench, he descended 11,000 meters below sea level, the deepest part of the ocean. Bertrand Piccard is the descendant of these pioneers. In 1999, he completed the first non-stop balloon flight around the world with his co-pilot Brian Jones.
We've done it! It's fabulous!
But it wasn't until 2002 that he came along with his great project for the first time. It all started off when he met André Borschberg, a Swiss pilot and entrepreneur. Under his leadership, tens of aeronautical engineers solved an impossible question: build the first solar aircraft in history capable of flying by day as well as by night. Together, they pushed existing technologies to their final limits. And on December 3, 2009, an aircraft with oversized wings rushed on the runway and Solar Impulse took off, leaving behind the solid Earth. 1 year later, it flew for 24 hours successfully. This achievement opened the way to flights across the borders, to Europe first, and then across the Mediterranean all the way to Morocco.
Bonjour le Maroc!
today, we can make incredible things with clean technologies and renewable energies, like going around the world without fuel in a solar airplane. But before that, we thought it would be fantastic to reproduce, rewrite some of the big, iconic aviation first with solar power. And after flying intercontinental from Europe to Africa, we wanted to make this iconic flight coast to coast across America.
Flying across the United States is a unique opportunity to attract the attention of outstanding decision makers. To carry the message to the heads of state, 5,600 kilometers have to be done in only 5 legs. But the first challenge is to transport the aircraft to America.
The airplane was designed in such a way that it could fit in a 747 in smaller parts. But you know, this airplane is designed to fly, not designed to be transported, obviously. So it's very solid in the air, but it's also very fragile if you need to move the parts. So it really was a nightmare to get this airplane in the fuselage of the 747 and make sure that there was no damages in the loading and in the downloading of the aircraft.
The problem is how to fit an aircraft the size of an Airbus into a Boeing. Solar Impulse will then be transported as a kit to the USA for the very first time. As soon as it lands, the first job of the whole team is to put the parts together. They realize at once how intricate the structure of the plane is. The upper part of the wings is like a huge chainmail, an armor designed for the sun. 12,000 photovoltaic cells cover the surface to make sure all flights get the necessary energy. They are responsible for the size of the plane, 64 meters from nose to tail. 4 10-horsepower engines have been chosen for propulsion. Alternatively powered by the solar generator or the batteries, they represent altogether the power of a scooter. But the structure is so exceptionally light that it accounts for the astonishing performance of Solar Impulse, a mere 1.6 tons, just the weight of a car.
So everything has to be tested on the ground, which is done now by the end of March. And of course, the airplane has to be tested in the air as well, to make sure that everything functions properly, that there is no deformation in the structure, there is no behavior of the airplane which is not the way it should be. It's important, in fact, to get this training before starting a long duration mission, because the flights may last up to 24 hours by day and of course partly by night.
Even before starting its flight over the USA, the plane already draws crowds of visitors.
This guy did a great job.
For Bertrand and André, the key part of the mission is to convince the largest number of people that Solar Impulse will change the rules in terms of global energy policies.
It's a good chance for the next generation to see how they could work with the energy sources that we have instead of using fossil fuels.
Solar Impulse is really great because it's the beginning of revolution.
And whether children or first-rate entrepreneurs are concerned, conversations are similar and fascination never stops.
We will never give the planet to the next generation before a major disaster.
A project like this shows you just how far we can, in fact, take it. If we can fly an airplane across America and then fly it around the world entirely solar powered, I think that's going to speak volumes to members of Congress and to people in the White House that these are real technologies that can really make a difference from an environmental, an economic, and a security standpoint.
May 3rd, 2013, the long-hoped-for and dreaded day of the first flight has arrived. Destination Phoenix. Bertrand Piccard has been chosen to open the ball. Under his suit, armbands attached to his biceps warn the pilot as soon as the machine shows worrying signs. Other captors warn the crew on the ground of possible failings to pay attention. Concentration is now at its peak. A human challenge is at stake. Tens and tens of flight hours during which the pilot has to be as efficient as the plane itself. Man and machine will soon form a single entity. As far as the pilot is concerned, it is now a mixture of both concentration and communication needed by the media.
We are both here with André for this across-American mission. We'll fly one after the other because there's only one seat. It's complete freedom because we have no fuel on board, so theoretically the plane can fly forever.
And all the technologies we have on board of this airplane can be used on the ground. They are developed by companies who are not from the aviation world. And these companies, of course, they want to develop application solutions for everyone. The solar cells for the homes, the batteries for the cars, they are all available. And if we use them now intensively, we can reduce our energy consumption certainly by half.
Takeoff is close and the last checkings can start. It's in Switzerland, 10,000 kilometers away, that the mission room analyzes all the parameters of the aircraft in real time. Raymond Clark is Mission Flight Director. He's the one who controls the operations.
When you want, Raymond, I can do the control switch. The ailerons are now full on the left. Aileron back to neutral. Ailerons full to the right. Ailerons back to neutral. Elevator full forward. Back to neutral. Elevator full backward. Commence à être prêt? Experimental solar impulse are reducified. Solar impulse is clear to proceed. Thank you very much, everybody.
In a matter of seconds, the speed of 50 kilometers has been reached. No more is needed from this ultralight plane to snatch itself from the Earth. It took place in a deafening, almost upsetting silence, as if it were just child's play. The ascent is slow, 40 meters per minute, but sufficient to catch the first rays of the sunbeams. The 4 batteries can now be activated to store part of this solar godsend.
Circuit breakers in. Number 1 on. Number 2. Number 3. And number 4. A very moving moment when I flew above Edwards Air Force Base, where Chuck Yeager broke the speed of sound, where there was the development of the most powerful and fast airplanes in the world, and I was overflying that place in a solar airplane flying 40 miles per hour.
Let us not forget that the team on the ground also has to take into account the different stages. Everyone must be watchful. That's one of the toughest difficulties of this enormous gamble. Now, scores of people and tons of materials must constantly be on the move.
Vous allez où? À Venise!
During these flights, the pilot has to adapt to a new environment. To lighten the plane, the cockpit isn't pressurized, and at an altitude of more than 8,000 meters, a larger supply of oxygen is necessary. At the same time, there is a drastic fall in temperature. It is minus 20 Celsius in the cabin, and the pilot has only his suit to warm him.
We have seen Bertrand when we did the overflight, slightly below because he was at the lower level that we usually fly because of the ATC. but it seemed to be absolutely fine. So we are getting prepared here to make sure that he is well received when he lands tonight. So still many hours to go, but we will get prepared.
Phoenix Airport, 9:30 p.m. The traffic is still heavy on the tarmac. Right now, no permission for Bertrand to land. At 1 o'clock in the morning, the last patrols make sure that the runways, as well as the sky, are now empty. Thousands of kilometers away and with more than 10 hours of jet lag, the mission room isn't asleep either.
Bertrand, just for your information, the checked altitude when turning base is around 2,000 feet.
After flying over and over again waiting for his turn to land, Bertrand can at last start his descent into Phoenix.
Congratulations, Bertrand. Very nice landing.
Merci, je suis content d'être à Phoenix, les gars. Génial!
Est-ce qu'il fait aussi chaud dehors que dedans? Non, il fait bon, il fait bon. Ciao. Welcome. Good morning, Arizona!
Arizona, the kingdom of sunshine. Here, the desert is sunny almost all the time. The sun shines about 320 days a year. And the sun has something to do with the name of the largest city in the state, Phoenix, like the solar bird who keeps being born again. This is the first symbolic leg and a unique opportunity to send a message to those who will build tomorrow's world.
It's my honor to welcome everyone to this celebration for our 2013 class of Fulton engineers. Next, we have a couple of very special guests. One of them is a doctor, a psychiatrist, and an aeronaut, and he made the first nonstop round-the-world balloon flight. The other is an engineer, a fighter pilot, and a professional airplane and helicopter pilot. Those are impressive qualifications by themselves, but what is even more interesting is that together they are hoping to inspire the next generation of innovators and adventurers and to show the world what a difference technological innovation can make. Please welcome André Borschberg and Bertrand Piccard.
Since we started the project, that's about 10 years ago, we had to overcome many technical obstacles, production failures, time crises. And all these difficulties are like huge mountains. Today you're going to graduate, and I would like you to remember one thing. Every difficulty is a potential opportunity. And I wish that in your life you will have the consciousness to see all these opportunities. Good luck.
If you want to be really successful, and more than that, if you want to be really useful for others, you will need to go beyond knowledge. You will need to go into exploration, innovation, and pioneering spirit. And today, more than ever, the world needs pioneers. The world has a lot of challenges to solve. So you see that you are exactly right on time in the history of humankind to invent a better future with new solutions. If you are all pioneers and explorers, the future will be a success. Good luck to all.
I mean, I have to ask that stupid questions. Why do we fly with these high winds if we barely can make it even with the very advanced and sophisticated tactics? If we have something like 5 knots more, we are in trouble.
Well, I think we are confident that the wind will not be stronger.
Marcus, maybe you have also to know that André already trained this type of approach several times with Raymond during the 72-hour simulation last December.
One thing is a simulator to play stuff like that, and the other thing is to really do it and have no options anymore. The other thing is there will be quite a lot of turbulence. For me, that looks not like a good day to fly, to be honest.
Personally, I feel confident. I was not 3 or 4 hours ago, but I did a lot of studies, I did a lot of calculation, and I really have the impression that based on what we experience, what I see, and the feedback I get from the weather guys, that's something which can be done in a safe way. If we want to get to New York, we sure have to take situations where the wind is not totally calm on the ground, departure, landing, and so on.
And it's probably also something that will happen quite a lot when we fly around the world. Huh? It's never going to be completely calm.
Oh yeah, it will be a good training for them.
Okay, so what do we do next?
Looking at the timing, I suggest we take off at 11:45 Zulu, not later, not like 5.
Pete, Peter et Nico, wing check. Daniel, il va faire son pilot equipment. Julien et moi, Lima Whiskey, j'aimerais la pression des pneus. Les battery hatch, you check battery hatch and you check pre-flight. Tout le monde sait ce qu'il a à faire? Alors feu.
Pressure has gone up for this second flight. That leg between Phoenix and Dallas, Texas appears really tough. Violent winds are forecast at landing time, the worst enemy of this ultralight aircraft. Under those circumstances, the best thing to do is to comply with the spirits of the place before departure.
Phoenix and Arizona is a very important place in the history of the Native Americans, and we did not want to leave from here without having this spiritual link with these native cultures. I think it's important to also remember for all of us that there is a spiritual dimension and not only the materialistic level that we see every day with our normal eyes.
Phoenix Tower from experimental terrain pulse would be ready for departure on the runway 08.
At precisely that time, there is no room for fear in the cockpit. What André and Bertrand are worried about is the possibility of failure. The message must be received. There is no alternative. Solar Impulse must be a success. So far, there has been no hitch on the 28,000-foot ascent. The conditions are perfect, and André is really having a good time. Cruising over the American West at a speed of 70 kilometers per hour gives him plenty of time to enjoy the view. Another way of traveling.
Unfortunately, we passed right over the top of him when we completed our turn there, so he is just behind us at this point. So, fortunately, we couldn't keep in sight the whole time.
You know, the flight seems to go very well. Now the landing, we'll have to be really cautious. There's strong winds on the ground. We'll have to be really calculated precisely. I tell you, there will be a lot of suspense for the landing.
We should also have a calculation for the alternate.
Yeah.
No, the alternate we can start. We will assume exactly this.
Lucky 3. We start from
okay,
Lucky 3. Yeah. It's the most northeastern point we have. That's the time.
And the other time we fix is the takeoff time, and then we see if we have to hold for this, and then we adapt.
Yeah.
And it's good to have some reserve.
In Dallas, there was something different than what we experienced up to now, and this was that the speed of the wind just above the airport was of the same that the maximum speed of the airplane. So the only way was just to keep, in fact, the nose of the airplane direction to the wind without making a normal circuit that you do if you want to land an airplane, just by sliding down, a little bit like a helicopter. And of course, this required a lot of concentration.
For the first one, for the leader, and further for the last one. We want more people today on the runway because André, expecting some wind for the landing, said...
Could we have a wind check? Tal, wind check?
André, le Tal, j'ai senti avec 5 nœuds, avec les points parfaits.
Parce que la tour m'a donné 12 nœuds.
A 4-hour wait over the airport. Turbulence is nearing the limit of what the aircraft can bear. Enough reason to test André's perfect know-how. Right now, he has to glide onto the runway sideways. A real feat.
I know it's difficult for André right now, but he's managing absolutely perfectly, but it's really not easy.
Looking good, André. What do you think? Yeah, it's good. I will do a late dogging down. If I forget, tu me dis encore, hein, parce que la puissance jusqu'au bout. Thank you. Okay, good job, André.
It feels great. It was not an easy one, so tell you we deserve it to be here. It was a very, very difficult flight. It was an innovation, so we know how to innovate in the project, so we innovated also in doing this approach.
Super boulot. This was a flight, I tell you.
You saw the drift?
Goodness.
18 knots in drifting?
I'm sorry.
Behind the Far West. Behind the Far West.
The history of aviation is a series of challenges, a common culture shared with the pioneers of the conquest of space.
And to this day, Apollo 7 is the longest, most ambitious, and most successful first test flight of any new machine ever. I'm very impressed with the manufacturer and what they did to make that spacecraft. It's a change in the culture that has to happen sometime, and I don't know if it will. This is one of those things. Solar Impulse is going to be very impressive to young people when it's out there flying, around the world, and that may inspire many of those folks to do something, try to do something which exceeds this. My disappointment was I didn't get in the cockpit.
Everyone knew about it, but wouldn't really admit it. At this time of year, Dallas and Texas are frequently hit by violent weather conditions. And a real storm is forecast for this morning. Instinctively, the whole team makes their way to take care of the plane. The hangar got minor damage, but the threat of flooding is near. And everything must be done to stop the water from flooding the place. Each part of the aircraft has to be rapidly and carefully protected. But that storm will by no means dampen the morale of the crew.
We need a good weather forecast at Louis. I think WIM is underway to prepare it. We need an estimate on how fast and how we can build a completely separate tent.
In St. Louis, the port of arrival, a violent storm has severely damaged the hangar where Solar Impulse had to be harbored. Despite this new serious blow, it's impossible to delay the takeoff. In a few hours, a depression will make every flight attempt impossible. So when it's time to go, the shelter issue remains open.
Okay, airborne. Little bit of crosswinds, but still fine.
The major actor of the flight is obviously the sun. Solar Impulse is capable of rising up to 8,000 meters to reach it. But even at that altitude, some clouds sometimes spoil the party.
From your side, Raymond, concerning the flights, concerning the development of the program?
We asked Bertrand to take pictures of the Cirrus. So we had different situations. Sometimes we had just 3,500 and then up to 6,000. So we saw him taking pictures of the clouds, and immediately after of the PMC, so we have the time and everything together. And we saw also by the picture of Luc that he should now be slowly out of this layer of Cirrus.
Okay. So I think interesting to communicate on this is that we have different type of clouds above us, and we continue to do measurement and to see how solar cells behave and which kind of energy we can take, which is also extremely useful for the flight around the world.
Well, we are finally on our way to St. Louis. It was not easy to find a weather window. This one is very narrow. There was still some thunderstorms in St. Louis during the weekend. It will be raining probably tomorrow evening again, so it was really a narrow window. But there's another thing that is really challenging, is the fact that actually it's the first time that Solar Impulse takes off and has no hangar or no shelter that is yet erected in the landing place.
As soon as they land at St. Louis Airport, the technicians of the team have to bustle around. A quite unusual emergency hangar has to be built on the tarmac. An inflatable structure capable of withstanding winds of 100 kilometers per hour. After putting up the main arch, they have to wait for the principal actor to install the other parts.
He's really making a very, very good, nice approach, very, very good final, short final, just 1 meter above the ground, and he will touch down, and he just did touch down. Yes, he's on the ground. Wonderful landing, super. Well done. Bertrand.
It was a dream to cross America and to stop here. And when we start a dream, we never know how it's going to happen. We never know which problem we potentially can have. And today we are here. And we're just so happy and so elated. And thank you for your welcome.
The aircraft can now move on to its parking place. In fact, the plane has now become the cornerstone into which the different parts will be fixed one by one. To take shape, each module has an incorporated wind tunnel. Then the teams must tie all the modules together, as the system has to adjust perfectly to the shape of the aircraft, from the fuselage to the wings. Altogether, it's a 4-hour job. It's tough, but it has to be done. A necessary evil. In its futuristic bubble, Solar Impulse is now protected from the wind and the rain. The sun alone will be entitled to pass through the structure, thus recharging the batteries of the aircraft on the ground. The city of St. Louis resonates in a very special way for aviation fans. Indeed, it gave its name to Charles Lindbergh's legendary plane.
This being the place that Charles Lindbergh took off in the spirit of St. Louis to make that first historic flight that really began modern aviation, and the McDonnell Douglas history here in St. Louis, and the need for us to continue to use technology and energy efficiency in the future makes this, I think, a key place in the entire world for aviation. And as the governor of the state of Missouri, I support that, and we work daily to try to make sure we stay competitive.
That leg in St. Louis also gives them a chance to forget, for a certain period of time, all the problems they had to overcome and the ongoing obstacles. A baseball match is a good way to relax and to reinforce the friendly atmosphere of a truly shared epic. But the interlude won't last long. They soon have to set off again and already have in mind that fourth leg, the second to last leg of the journey.
It's a very new strategy for us. We've been thinking about it many times. We call it a pit stop. That's a leg we do in 2 days. We cannot make it with one pilot. I mean, the airplane could just fly these 2 days without any difficulty, but we have no autopilot, no way to rest, so we will change pilots. That's the goal, in fact, to this pit stop. I do the first part, Bertrand will do the second one, but the airplane will stay outside. All the tests will be done overnight, and very early morning, Bertrand will take off again with the goal to be in Washington, D.C. on Saturday night.
In order to avoid having to face an unfavorable wind, the team decides to split the leg into 2 periods of time, but that choice implies that everybody will have to work much faster and almost non-stop for 48 hours.
It's the first time in the across America that we land during daylight, because here it's calm, and also the airport closes at 8 and not at 1 in the morning, so it's much more easy for the entire team to be on the runway. So Solar Impulse is in Cincinnati now. You know, when it's André landing, nobody is afraid. It's always a beautiful landing.
Tu vois, hein? Tu me fais une belle jambe. Salut mon grand.
Do you think Harry Potter could make an airplane flying on solar power? I think so, huh? He should have the magical formula for that. You should find it.
The weather keeps playing tricks. This time, the proximity of the river and a change in temperature generate a thick fog at the scheduled departure time.
En 0,3, ça permet de partir dans cette direction-là.
Oui.
Maintenant,
mais la procédure, c'est de tourner et revenir dans l'autre sens. Hein.
Ouais, mais si la procédure elle te dit d'aller dans les nuages, tu ne peux pas la suivre.
Exactement.
The visibility is so poor that takeoff has to be delayed. But there is more to it. The dampness definitely has to be dried off to save the essential parts.
We started to clean the airplane and take the water away because with the fog there was a lot of humidity on the airplane. And what we see is that we have in many areas water infiltration and water which accumulated, for example, in the ailerons. And it's very critical because the ailerons are what we call mass balanced. So we are extremely careful with that. We try to take the water away. I think we'll be able to make it, but it's quite tense now in the team, and we really work extremely focused on this question.
This long operation comes to an end only when the sun finally decides to warm up the atmosphere. But each delay never fails to raise tensions in the team. For long hours, everybody has been called upon to study and follow the flight simulations in real time. The wind, the sun, air traffic, they all keep changing, and the right window is overdue.
No change of procedure, guys, please. It's not the moment for that.
j'espère. Mais c'était dur ce matin. Hein? Ah, c'était dur, ça fait partie des opérations, mais c'était limite. As we have a lot of people on the runway, catching crew, for example, what we are doing currently, they have to close the runway to allow the people to be here. And when the runway is closed, of course, they cannot give the landing clearance to an airplane to land because the runway is closed. So that's what they mentioned. Runway is closed, but and you can land, but it's on your own risk.
Runway 13 left closed, unable to issue landing clearance. Landing left will be at your own risk.
Ouais, c'était pas gagné quand on est parti, hein. C'était pas gagné au départ. On ouvre? Ouais, on ouvre. On ouvre.
Washington, D.C. The heart of power is now getting closer. That's where the decisions are made. That's where their message has to leave a mark.
This engineering marvel touches on 4 really critical areas for the Department of Energy. One is, of course, solar. Well, that's obvious. Number 2, as mentioned, energy storage. Number 3, energy efficiency and system integration. And 4th, I would just single out kind of the advanced materials. The message, what I wanted to leave is that in 10 years, we're going to see the fruits of all these technologies changing the world.
All the most famous airplanes are exposed either here or at DC. We have 2 airplanes, or it will be in one museum. So maybe the second airplane with a flight around the world may end up in the Smithsonian. Of course, you need a hangar of the appropriate size, but I think the size here is very fine.
A place of honor for this huge aircraft surrounded with its famous forerunners. It would join the balloon in which Bertrand Piccard made his non-stop world tour in 1999. In those days, little attention was paid to renewable energies.
Solar Impulse was born in this fuel tank. We had 32 fuel tanks like this one, a total of 3.7 tons of fuel. And the last one just had 40 kilos left. If we had consumed a little bit more propane, we would have ditched in the Atlantic. And that's the moment where I made the promise that the next time I would fly around the world, it would be with no fuel at all. Not to have any fuel tanks, just to fly perpetually with the sun.
Before embarking on this world tour, Solar Impulse is about to write the last lines of its history on the American continent.
Ça va être génial. J'ai 14 heures d'attente, mais je suis sûr que ça va passer en 3 minutes parce que je me réjouis tellement de faire la suite, ça va être absolument génial. Donc je croise les doigts. Tout marche bien.
Rolling with this little headwind, it will be in the air very, very quickly. That's it. Lift off. Lift off, André, for the last leg. Have a good flight. We're all with you. Ah, c'est toujours aussi merveilleusement beau.
This flight to New York City, the ultimate leg, is almost the most symbolic chapter of this whole journey. a sort of epilogue showing that a new world can come into being. For the last time in the American sky, Solar Impulse will print its unique signature, which will prove to be more efficient than any speech. But an unpredictable incident has everyone holding their breath.
D'accord. Merci beaucoup. Super. Merci. Merci. Ciao, ciao. Ciao. Merci. Ok. Alors, quand l'hélico est arrivé, il a vu qu'il y avait une bande d'à peu près 3 mètres de l'entoilage de l'intrado qui s'était déchiré au niveau du bord d'attaque et qui flottait, qui s'est replié vers l'arrière et qui flottait vers l'arrière en dépassant l'arrière du bord d'attaque. Si les ribs lâchent, à ce moment-là, forcément, les panneaux solaires qui sont dessus lâchent. Et ça fait un trou dans l'air. Ce qui est en soi peut-être corrigeable au manche, vu que l'aile est immense. Mais ça ne permet pas de turbulence. Donc ce qu'ils envisagent pour l'instant, c'est si on arrive à ne pas avoir de turbulence, c'est de poser un JFK en urgence le plus vite possible dès que la météo le permet. Donc l'éjection est envisagée, les Coast Guard ont été avisés et André a préparé le cockpit.
Okay.
I had the visit of a helicopter around noontime. The pilot made a picture, sent it to the control center, which sent it back to me in a few minutes in the airplane. And then I realized what it was. But I think the shock came when I got the feedback from the engineers who told me that they were surprised that the airplane did not disintegrate yet. So I said, geez, that's serious. And what I did was to make sure that the airplane was away from the coast in case I had to jump, and I really prepared how to jump out. And what I did is to go through the sequence of it, how to jettison the canopy, how to get out of the airplane, how to open the parachute, fall down, get into the water, and so on. And I had the impression that, well, if I had to do it, I would knew how to do it. And also told myself, I mean, if this happened, I mean, enjoy it. And by believing that I was able to do it, I became less anxious. And I could put this on the side and really focus on flying this airplane extremely finely and bring it back to Kennedy Airport.
For the very first time, everybody is aware that the aircraft might have had to make an emergency landing, even crash into the sea. An incident which would have raised doubt on what had been done previously, and which would have silenced the message of hope that Solar Impulse wanted to deliver to the world.
We have a nice water area which is inland. And over this water area there is no cumulus. That's exactly what I'm aiming for currently. We will position ourselves in such a way that it should not be turbulent, and we are, I guess, safer there as well.
Okay.
For me, the climax of this Across America adventure was not the landing of the last leg, it was the 2 big sessions we had at the United Nations. because it is so important to say that we have today the technologies to divide by 2 the energy consumption of the world. But it will only happen with political decisions. And where can it be a better place to speak about political decisions, political involvement, than at the United Nations?
The Solar Impulse flight across the United States proves that with ingenuity, we can harness this power for impressive results. With a daring and determination, we can fly into a new future.
And when we will fly around the world, of course, this airplane will not just be the result of our teamwork. This airplane is just a living and flying proof that the dreams can come true, that the impossible can be fulfilled. And this is why I hope you will all travel with us in 2015. This plane belongs to you. Thank you.
Bertrand Piccard and André Borschberg succeeded in their crazy challenge to fly across the whole American continent, fueled only by the sun and their willpower. But mostly, their message was heard in the very heart of the system, where tomorrow's world is being shaped. It is said that all great ideas have to find their way around the world. That's the next challenge that the Solar Impulse team have already started working on. What it's all about is an unpolluting round-the-world flight, a rendezvous with the future.